Welcome to We Flew Off the Page. I'm Mohammed Seven, and I'm here to do my very favorite thing in the world. That's talk to great songwriters about how they do what they do. And each episode, we'll dive into the little details of two of my guests' songs, which I'll play for you. The songwriter has chosen one of their songs, and I have agonized over and selected the other from their catalog of wonderful music. Today's show is brought to you by the Larynx. Without the voice box, lyrics would just be grunts, snorts, and mumbles. Warm tea is the best way to care for the larynx and to make sure yours lasts forever. You can find the larynx in the neck, above the windpipe, and in front of the gullet. And if I was you, I'd look for yours today while supplies last. My guest today is MC, songwriter, and painter Moe Pope. Moe started rapping in the late 90s and has been a member of Mission, the Electric Company, and Project Move. He made at least two solo albums with producer Rain and is currently making inspiring and innovative hip-hop with his band Still Gold. Still Gold is a reference to The Outsiders, the 1983 Francis Ford Coppola movie that Moe and his bandmates have had a lifelong love for, a film that has always resonated with them in important ways. Moe's focus has always been rapping about what he wants to say, not about what's on trend or what's profitable. In the last decade, his music has dealt more and more with issues of oppression, racism, police violence, and classism. He's also taken big public stands and has played key roles in changing what I will call a lot of institutionalized bullshit in Boston and nationwide. Moe has rocked everything from house parties in Mission Hill to Boston loft parties to Science Museum laser shows. Yes, I was there for one of those, and it was incredible. To the Boston Symphony Orchestra, and from Boston to the Bay Area, where he spent some of his formative years as an artist. Moe and Still Gold have toured the world over, won numerous awards. Okay, I'm done. Moe Pope, thank you for joining me today on We Flew Off the Page.
What's happening? You missed one record in there.
I was just about to ask, did I get it right, or what did I miss?
You missed one record. I made my first solo record was with dude Hednotic, Moe Pope and Hednotic, and it's called Megaphone.
You know what?
It's the only one. It's right after Project Move. I did Megaphone.
I'm so glad you kept me honest.
That's dope, though.
I'm honestly not surprised that I missed one because you have put out a lot of work.
Man, you made me sound real important, though. I like that.
Well, it wasn't hard. All right, so let's start off. I have many questions for you. This was really fun thinking about your body of work and who you are as an artist. It was really fun to think about what I wanted to chop it up with you about. So let's start talking about a little bit about genre. You and I have a number of things in common. For when we were both quiet kids and have found lives in the spotlight, although kind of visibility you have is different than the kind that I have. But we also both have roots on the Massachusetts South Shore, and we're both introduced to an unusual variety of musical influences and genres, starting from a young age. This is one of the things that has made your work so vibrant and fresh. That you aren't afraid of the voices that say punk rock or hardcore or folk music doesn't belong in hip-hop. In fact, the last track on your new record features the wonderful band Darling Side, which is an act you would think I'd be more likely to share a stage with than you, but they fit squarely in your wheelhouse and style. Anyhow, I find that lyrically, this is going to be a long question, so bear with me. There's a lot of buildup. I find that lyrically, you seem to be similarly untethered to convention, be that in terms of the subject matter of your rhymes or in terms of rhyme style. So getting to my question, feels to me like hip-hop lyricism compared to other genres of music has changed in style quite a lot in the last 20 years. I've heard you comment that younger rappers don't seem to be as concerned with the toughness and toxic masculinity, which was a constraint that MCs of our era were consumed by. At the same time, Chuck D once said that hip hop is black CNN, and when I hear younger rappers these days, usually feels to me like they're speaking on a more individual basis, where the rap I grew up on, more frequently addressed the collective. I realize I'm generalizing here, but more frequently addressed a collective of various Black and of color communities and of heads. I also notice that lyrically, this new generation of MCs seems less bound by narrative in their rhymes in a certain way, in terms of songs that tell more of a linear or coherent story. Now, I mean, hip hop has never been bound by linear narrative. I can think of 100 raps spanning the decades that are free form, with a stream of consciousness style. But my sense is that there is even less concern today with having an obvious, message or story than there was 20 years ago. And I'm not making a value judgment about this one way or the other. This is just a kind of a shift in the lyricism styles that I, perceive. So, any thoughts about this? And obviously, you're welcome to disagree with me on any level.
I think it's tough because I think that what sells right now is obviously the narrative that we're not thinking, which isn't true. Obviously, I think that there's a wide range of great young hip hop artists out there, but if we don't own the record labels and stuff like that, if we don't own the marketing companies, if we don't own the radio stations, what actually rises to the top isn't necessarily the majority's. We don't get to pick. I don't get to pick what is at the forefront. But I can name a bunch of young artists that are looking outwardly at the world, as well as the hip hop bravado and stuff that we love, that we grew up with, but also looking outwardly. And I would say that it's not what's being marketed to us. I would definitely say that. And we don't really we don't own the marketing companies. Anyone can make music nowadays. We all have laptops. We all have the ability to have Pro Tools and all these other cool things to make music. So the opportunities to make music are out there. Which ones will radio stations promote, though? Which ones will the marketing, teams? Which one will it all matters,
Right.
Which ones are gonna get the award shows? They aren't owned by us,
Right.
So it's I don't know.
Yeah.
Say black trauma still makes more money, ignorance still makes more money,
Right.
So, but we, that we're not. The young people ain't ignorant. The young people ain't. We all know that black people out there are looking outwardly as well. And especially our young people are doing that. So,
Absolutely.
This is what it is.
Well said. You started writing raps at the age of 18. How would you say your songwriting, and I'm asking specifically about the written page here, has changed over time?
Over time, I would say that when I first started rapping, just like most young people, it's like you want to be the best, and you think inner. You think, what is my story, And I obviously wasn't a big proponent on hip hop history or anything like that. I just did what my neighborhood was doing, just like most young people. It feels good, and what came with it was notoriety. I was noticed by women for the first time. I was noticed by my family members, and you want that as a kid. You want to be seen as somebody who's talented and creative, and then as I got older, just like how your books change, what you consume on TV, anything changes, as you get older and you're thinking about the world and you have children and you've had life experience, my thoughts on hip hop change. I still want to be the best MC, but I want to talk about other things, rather than myself. you know.
Yep. That's great. Lately, I think a lot about evolving my own songwriting and embracing certain perspectives and topics and styles that I've either avoided or failed to figure out how to write about. Is anything like that ever on your mind?
Sorry, say it one more time.
Lately, I think a lot about embracing things in my songwriting that I've either avoided because I felt like it wasn't me or something like that, or things that I just haven't, you know. For example, here's maybe an example will make the question clear, which is, I don't have a lot of fun songs. It's like I got a lot of sad songs and I got a lot of serious songs and I got some fight songs, but like and I think about my audience and I think about, okay, in a set, how about some fun in there? And then what would that be like for me in terms of, what does a fun Muhammad 7 song sound like, and what's that subject matter? How is that honest? How can I make that honest, but also, bring that element? Or another thing that I've been thinking a lot about is sex in my songs, which, romance and sexuality and love, I certainly do deal with those things, but I don't really deal directly with sex. And, I have thought a lot about that in terms of, I've intentionally avoided, I think, sort of using myself. I'm not interested in having sex sell my songs in a way, just because to me that feels part of, a system of exploitation. Not that I feel like I would feel exploited, but I don't want to. It's not what I'm serving to my audience, if you follow what I'm saying. But at the same time, what I'm starting to think and what I'm starting to realize is that I'm holding a part of myself back because I'm not willing to share that part of myself. And it just seems like another interesting question to me. What would it be like for me to write about that in a way that felt genuine and, didn't feel like I was just trying to get attention because sex is titillating, which is, I think, what I've tried to avoid. So anyway, it doesn't have to be about fun or sex, but I'm just curious if, in terms of your work, if there are any, perspectives, topics, styles that you've avoided, but it's on your mind, like, oh, it'd be interesting to try and push in this direction or that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that especially anyone that's like, man, I think about, I think deeply on things a lot, and I think it's very easy for an artist to take themselves too serious, and I don't want to do that either. I don't want to alienate people from joy, because the world is hard, and that's what I enjoy speaking about and stuff. Yeah, so I absolutely within the last couple of years have been like, damn, like I just want to enjoy music again. I've definitely done that, and not to be just talking about the hard parts of what's happening in my life or the world or what I see outside my window. I have dreams and aspirations, and I fantasize about smiling more than frowning, just like everybody else, So, yeah, man, I think that the biggest part is that, like, I think more so than anything is trying to recapture that feeling that I had when I was 18. Just what the joy of what the music was that I was listening to, back then. It seemed like a simpler time, even though I know that there was horrors going on. We were just younger and not paying attention, but yeah, I think that that's pretty much mostly what it is. I talk about a wide range of things.
Indeed.
Already, but I think the biggest one for me is remembering that I can be a dope MC again, I could do that too. Just rap because rapping is dope, and it's fun, So yeah, I think
I,
that would be my thing.
I love that so much. Give us one example or a couple of the early, when you were 18, what you were listening to that made you feel that way, or
Oh
anything in
wow!
that
I
realm.
mean, even the scenario, you know, these are just Tribe Called Quest with Leaders of the New School with, you know, who else is in that clique, man? Like I think that's the one. Like for me, like the scenario, Native Tongues era. They
Right.
talked about things, but they also like was talking about, inner beauty and joy, the sun, jazz music, like
Right.
things that they just enjoyed, things that made them smile. And I think that that's okay. I think that's, there's nothing, it doesn't always have to be heavy.
I love that example of that band because those themes, they were there on the page lyrically, and they worked their way into all parts of that music. The
Hmm.
production, the beats, the styles. You
Hmm.
really you felt that joy. I feel like all the way through their career, and in that era, that was you'd never heard anything like that before. It was so exciting.
Absolutely. Even like the resurgence of the love for De La right now. I'm
Mm-hmm.
loving that. I'm loving that
Mm-hmm.
young people are finding De La right now for the first time, man. I've loved those creatives so much that like just to see people playing that music again.
Yep.
And like I said, some of it's heavy, yeah, absolutely, but some of it's just fun and
Right.
creative and just these dudes making music. And I also think that this is the thing. This is the one big thing that like folk music and hip hop have in common is that we are tasked with, especially black people, period, like
Mm.
brown people, period. Black
Yep.
and brown folk have to deal with saying more or being tasked with, well, why don't you talk about the
Right.
people in your neighborhood getting shot, and why don't you do, well, why doesn't rock people don't have to do that? Like, they can just create.
Right.
They're allowed to just create and have fun. And why do we have to be a bigger thing, Don't
Yes.
get me wrong, I love it when there's a bigger thing. Like,
Sure,
when
but
there's
it
a
shouldn't
bigger
be
message.
our job to be spokespeople for our people as our only
Exactly.
identity. Yeah, right.
Absolutely. So like, yeah, I think that like the unfortunate part is that we're always tasked, black and brown people are always tasked with having to do the hard work, and you know, sometimes we just want to smile, and I want to get back to that too. I want to do both. you know.
I love that. I find that so. And sometimes we just want to smile. This is already we're early in the interview, and I know that I'm going to take that from this. It's really going to stay with me. I love that so much. Um, I've heard you talk about your influences. I know Michael Bivins of New Edition, who also grew up in Roxbury, was a huge inspiration to you. He's pumping his fist. You can't see it on Zoom.
Yeah, that's my yeah.
I mean, you can't see it on
That's
the
mhm.
on the podcast, but we're on Zoom here. So huge. I'm sorry. Go ahead. That's your guy.
No, that's my guy, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny because so many people are like, "Yo, who's your favorite group?" And they expect me to say some like, "Who's your-" like, they expect me to say these like crazy
Right.
bands or whatever, or these
Right.
crazy rappers, and I'm like, "Yo, Michael Bivins, man, New Edition, all the way." you know,
Hell yeah.
that's it. All starts with New Edition for me.
I love it.
So,
So he was
yeah.
a huge inspiration to you as a personality and as a performer.
Mhm.
And you've also talked about your uncles being big influences on you. Big guys, hockey players, listened
Mhm.
to hardcore and rock.
Mhm.
You've had many, many other influences in terms of people and in terms of musical styles. But I'm wondering if there are particular influences outside of hip hop that have affected not just your music, but your songwriting in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that I mean, if, even early on, Fleetwood Mac, just even like hearing that story of how they signed contracts that no matter who wrote a song, the other people have to sing it in contract. Like, you have to do it. And they were writing songs about each other, like, and still having to put their all into those songs, like Joni Mitchell, or listening to Joni Mitchell early and her creative style of writing, Stevie Wonder. I mean, so many. Marvin Gaye is a big one. I always thought that Marvin Gaye's lyrics and how he took things that were happening in his life and in the world and made projects out of it. It's like, all right, like, I'm gonna make a whole sexy album. I'm gonna do that, and it's gonna be the sexiest thing that anyone's ever heard, and it was true,
and it was,
like, and I'm gonna make a record talking about the atrocities of the world and make it so soulful that it doesn't even matter if you don't like political music. Like, you're gonna play this record, like, and even the divorce one, Hear My Dear. He was going through a divorce with his wife, and he dedicated an album. I don't know if you ever heard this record.
I haven't heard that one.
Oh my gosh! So peep this. Hear My Dear, right? He goes to court is getting divorced from his wife, and the judge orders him to dedicate an album to his wife.
The judge orders him to do this.
Yes. So on the record's called "Hear My Dear," right? And if you open the gatefold of the record, for those who don't know what the gatefold is, the middle of the record when you open it, it has a big picture, and it has a Monopoly board on the gatefold, and a woman's outstretched hand, and a man with a little record in between his fingers, and he's giving it to the woman's outstretched hand. On her side of the Monopoly board is coins and gold piles and a house, a car, and all the stuff. And on his side is just a microphone and a piano on the Monopoly board. And in my opinion, it's the first, if I could be mistaken, but to me, I think this is the first diss album ever made.
Oh, wow.
Because he is completely destroying his ex-wife throughout the whole record, but he does it in such a beautiful way that you're like, wow, this is amazing.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah,
that's intense.
It's a good record. And then I think my last one would be Radiohead. Radiohead's like, I always loved Tom York's lyrics, and I think the band they could have played anything. They could have played jazz, they could have played classical.
Right.
They could have done anything, but they chose to play rock. So, and I always loved that. So, I mean, even Bob, man. There's so many, whichever Bob you want, Bob Dylan, Bob Marley,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Right.
I think so many influences.
I was about to say, I think what we're hearing here, you could go on for another hour, I think, about your influences. And, you're a sponge. We're learning this about you in terms of the lyrics, that you just have been soaking all this up your whole life and loving it, and it comes out in your lyrics. So in so many ways, the nature of hip-hop is collaboration. In fact, it's a celebration of collaboration in terms of MC and DJ, in terms of band and producer, also in terms of MCs collaborating with each other on a single track. Mm-hmm. As a rhyme writer, what's it like for you collaborating with another lyricist on a song? When you're the lone MC on a track, is there a sense of control over the direction of the song since you're the only voice? Or does that ramp up the pressure because you got to, saddle that whole load yourself? When you have a guest on the song, is there any anxiety over whether or not they'll come through? Or is it a relief to share the work of making great music with your trusted friends and great artists? Break it down a bit.
I think that I'm very lucky because I would say that if I presented a song to someone that took it serious, they didn't. I think sometimes people just give a verse and it's whatever, the important thing is that you're on the track. It doesn't really matter. Like, you know, it's like people just want to hear another voice. You know, I think to some people that's how they take it. And I've been lucky that everybody who's been on my records are people I truly care about, you know, or I truly have studied and admired, you know, for a long time. And I know the quality of their work, you know, and what they do, what they bring to the table. So I have a lot of trust in people. And I think that that's something that doesn't happen a lot in music too, is that the trust factor is, you know, I don't just play them one song, I play them a couple and let them pick, you know. I also have trust that they're gonna give me their best, and I trust in my work. I trust in what I do, and I believe that I'm putting my best foot forward. It's not for everybody. I'm not saying I'm the greatest or anything like that, but I do believe that I'm putting my best foot forward. So I feel like what I'm presenting people is something that's pretty good, and I know that they're gonna give me something back in the same. If you're an artist, I think most people realize this is a lot of work, you know, especially people that understand bands. And it's a lot of work, you know, and I think that most people just don't want to waste their talents and their moments, you know, like I don't either, you know. If I'm on your record, I'm gonna give you the very best that I could do with that, you know. If you're asking me to be on your record, it's an honor, you know, to me. So
as I was listening to you, I was just thinking, you've got a certain kind of work ethic, and it makes sense to me that you attract other artists, you know, who have a lot of talent, certainly, but also who have a similar work ethic. It makes sense to me that that's how we hear the results on the albums, because they're always so tight. You know, MC to MC.
Thank you. And there's so many, like I have so many artists that I have a couple of artists that are always on our records, and they don't really get the I don't think people realize it. My boy Chris Claxton. He's a Trump multi instrumentalist. Plays almost everything. Like Nick Fineff is always on the records. One of my favorite guitarists and bass players. Like, and these people are sprinkled over the last 4 records that I've made, you know, and they're a big part of what we do. But again, they're coming in with, we've created something. We're like, hey, we want you to be on this, like, you know. So there's a lot of trust, like I said, you know, that people are gonna give their best, and most people really, really do. Don't get me wrong, I've had a few where we're sitting in there, we're like, damn, I don't even know what to do with this. I've had a few, but it's so rare. I can only think of 2, to be honest, throughout my whole career. You know,
you were raised poor, grew up in the projects in Roxbury. You've been a musician most of your life. You're also a fine art painter. You've also been a house painter. You've traveled the world as a rapper. You and your wife, who I know and love, are also small business owners. Seems to me like you've had a wide variety of experiences in terms of class. What's your experience of that, and how is that reflected in what you write?
Oh, wow. I mean, I think that if you've grown up, it's tough, because if you make music, if you create and you make music, that's one thing. But if hip hop is such it's one or the other. You rich with the diamonds and all that stuff like that, or you poor. I'm talking about that. Very rarely are we hearing records where they're like, "Oh, I'm middle class." It doesn't really resonate like that.
Joe
Most
the
people
plumber
don't.
coming to you from Main Street.
Yeah, I'm an electrician. And I did well for myself.
Right, right. I'm happy.
Yeah. It's very it's that's not the tale being told, but
Right.
not all black and brown people are poor. Not all rappers are poor. I don't think you have to start out from a poor place. I mean, I think there are a couple of great examples. Drake. Drake's a great example of somebody who their parents did okay. You know
Yep.
what I mean? He somehow is the voice of hip hop in America. Chance the Rapper. His parents did pretty okay. And he did well for himself. So I don't know. I think the goal is always to do better for your young people, your family or whatever, than what you had. And when you are starting out in the projects, is not much lower you can go other than a homeless shelter. So,
Right.
I do want to say that, like, I didn't know that I was poor when I was younger. I don't think most kids do.
Right.
I think, and it's not that my mother sheltered us that we were poor. She was poor.
Right.
But I don't think that kids think of it like that. As long as we can go outside and play, we're loved, and there's a field to run through,
Yeah.
I think that most people will figure it out,
Right.
The unfortunate part is that we have to deal with a lot more extras.
Right.
And that's another thing. Class, though, the classism and all that is like, I think that it's like I said, I think it's more so a mindset, more so than your actual, I felt rich,
Right.
even though I was poor as fuck, so,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. This is such an interesting thing about class. I tend to think that, every class, there's some big downsides and some big upsides. And, for those of us who were raised poor, the big downsides will kill you faster than for, the other classes. But there really are upsides. It's like, I think there's also a way that poor people are sort of seen as victims only in a way. And, the way that you can go outside and play in your community, play with the other kids. Even in our generation, that was starting to stop happening with the upper classes, just the way that middle class and wealthier kids lived more isolated lives in their houses with their nice stuff. And there's such a vitality and a value to that community, that community that is the beating pulse that keeps, your family alive in a lot of cases. When things get hard, those are the people that pick you up, even though there's a lot of hard things that happen in those communities as well. There's a beauty to it, and there's a vitality to it. And for those of us that, didn't stay poor our whole lives, those were some of the things that kept us going, until we found, our way out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that exactly what you said. There is there's an hours factor. This community is ours.
Right.
This meal is ours. This win is ours. I mean, I hate to bring it back to one of the greatest of all time, Michael Bivins, but seeing Michael Bivins in the community as a kid, seeing his family, and it did something. He was one of us, he acts that way even still today. There's an hours factor. It's not just their music. That's Roxbury music,
Right.
and it's an inspiration. It's a thing. I mean, Edo too. That I don't know if it's something about Boston and Roxbury or just the community of these little boroughs in Boston, of how we think. But yeah, there's a
Talk about the great Edo G, by the way, for folks that
Edo G,
don't know
yeah.
him.
There is a we factor.
Yep.
to it. I mean, make no question, it was Ed O.G. who was doing it, but there was a we factor to his music. And when I see him today, he still has that. He still has that, about him. So yeah, it's dope.
I love to hear that he was lifting people up in that way just by doing what he was doing, and and staying a part of everything. That's so lovely and profound. I mean, for us to think about as artists, because I think a lot of times we can get lost wondering what the impact is that we're having. Are we reaching people? Does it matter what we're doing? These are questions that at least I get lost on sometimes in my, on the hard days. And I love to hear an example of somebody who, on the one hand Edo was doing him, and he's trying to make it for himself, and it wasn't that he wasn't putting himself first, but because of what you're saying, he had a lasting impact that lasts to this day, in a huge community of people. To me, that's just, I love that.
Absolutely, man.
So I love to talk about big T truth versus little T truth, which is that's the way I talk about, big T truths to me are things that are literally true, and little T truths are those things that may not be literally true, but there's a deep truth to it. It's like in songwriting, the big T truth for me are the songs where you're writing literally about your life. The little T truth could be a complete fabrication in terms of the details, but at the heart of it, you're writing it because there's something deeply true to you. And I was listening to one of your songs the other day that was clearly a character study. The guy you were rapping about, I knew that was not you. And for me as a singer-songwriter, again, I do this all the time. No one
Which
thinks.
song?
Oh man, I wish I'd written it down because I can't remember which one it was. I'm sorry. That would have been helpful if I had written it down. But I was listening through a bunch of your catalog. But anyway, to me, it seems so. For me, I do this all the time. No one thinks twice about it, in the kind of music that I make, kind of singer-songwriter, folk, Americana, whatever you want to call it. Seems to me though that as a rapper, people often take what you say very literally. And I wonder, does this come up for you? Do people approach you about the things you say in raps? And I'm in particular, I'm asking about it because I'm wondering if this is on your mind when you write. When you're writing, do you feel a freedom to get to sort of say things, say that this happened and that happened, to create a character study or whatever? Or do you feel like if I say this, I know I'm going to get people are going to say to me, "Hey, is that true?" Or prove that this is who you are.
Well, I think in hip hop there's two ways of doing things. There's you write a song and it's completely your story, right? Or you can write a song like and talk about people in your community. You are your community. So the I've heard songs where they're rapping about the drug addict in the neighborhood, and they take on the role of the drug addict, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or whatever. Are they drug addicts? No. They're telling you a story, just like, any other writer, they're telling a story. I would say that I do both. I try to talk about, even in my own family, my father was an addict, So his affect, how he moved, how he talked, I put some of that in my music. He was a drummer, so like how he held himself, walked or whatever. I've definitely been in the studio and been like, and was like, I'm coming like this today, but then my mother was a worker, and blue collar, and I also do that too,
Right.
So it depends. I think that there are some people in the community. It's you have to tell a full tale of your surroundings, and I think that's the best part of hip hop. Nas, I think, is one of the best at that. Is looking at what's happening in the world and speaking what he has seen with his eyes and being able to make poetry on it. That's the thing that people forget is like this stuff ain't. It's not autobiography music. You know, it's poetry.
Right.
You know, it's supposed to be. You know, it's supposed to be a wide spectrum
Right.
of experiences and things that our eyes have seen. You know.
That makes me happy. I'm glad that doesn't feel like a limitation for you. Doesn't seem like it in the music, but I was curious.
Yeah.
I heard you say in an interview that you almost always start writing a rap with a beat. In other words, you rarely just start with lyrics on their own. You said, "I like the music to tell me what to do." Speak a little bit about how that process works for you.
I mean, it's different because like the drums could be doing one thing, and you have to figure out where because your syllables are like a drum,
Right.
You know, every syllable is a beat, you know, in and of itself. So you got to find where you lay in that beat, how you want to be creative in that, and it could be anything. Syllables could, you know, that's the great part about it. It's like a bongo, you know, So, you know, first you gotta figure out that, and then you gotta figure out what do you want to say? What's it saying to me? Like, what is even what the music in the background saying? Like, I can't if there's strings and it's pretty, can I bring a rawness to it, or should I bring retrospective? You know, should I bring a thought out, you know, introspective opinion on the world, or should I just b-boy it and talk my talk, you know? So it's like I let the music wash over me and let it tell me what I'm supposed to say, you know, first. And then, but if somebody's already, that's a good thing about collaboration too, because if someone's bringing you something and say, this is what this story is about, you know, that also you have to work within the confines of what that story is about.
Right.
You know?
Sometimes the limitations can be helpful.
Yes,
they give you direction.
Absolutely. So, yeah, you know, it's to me, it's all fun, and it's different ways of figuring out how to do it. You know, you get a guitar. You know, what's the guitar saying to you today? You know, what's it like? You know, it's right. Like most people say, you know, the guitar has its own. A lot of guitarists that I know say that it has its own personality. You know, and it'll tell you what it wants your fingers to do. You know.
Since you mentioned guitar, I'm going to pivot questions because I have a question about you and the guitar, which is that listening to some of your archival interview, I discovered that you play the guitar and sometimes write songs on the guitar, and I had no idea about this. I find myself very curious what that music would sound like, you on a guitar, and I think of someone like Andre 3000 and the way he pivots between, you know, classic Atlanta beats and then some acoustic guitar music, like, you know, Hey As, the acoustic guitar is the main thing in the song. I wonder if you ever think about, you know, making a pivot like that, you know, giving that a track.
I mean, I have. I will not give it up to the archetype. He is a great guitarist. I know he won't say that, but in my opinion, he is. He some of my favorite guitarists are very subtle. They're not even, you know, they're not noodly or like a John Frusciante from Red Hot Chili Peppers. He's one of my favorites. He's just he does very simplistic, but it's what the song needs, you know? And, you know, and I would not call myself a good guitarist. I wouldn't call myself an okay guitarist. I can get by, you know? I can get by. That's it. I could write a song and I could play a little bit. So, you know, where I've had a couple of chances to play on a record, usually it's our producer who's fixing up my mistakes or whatever, but I do love the guitar. I really do. I love playing it. It's so calming. It's calming to me, you know. First song I learned how to play was Blackbird from the Beatles.
Wow,
You know,
that's a difficult first song to play.
yeah, first one, and it was. I love that. I love that. I clearly I don't play it as good as Paul, but you know,
None of us do.
yeah. So
All right, one more question before we jump into your songs. So I had after my question about how you start writing a rap with the beat, had a sort of a piggyback question to that one that I jumped over, which is, I heard you say that freestyling is not a big strength of yours, but I'm curious, does freestyling play any role in your songwriting process? In other words, like, do you flow alone in the room to come up with ideas, like to brainstorm, just you yourself, or to find exciting turns of phrase, or those bars that just hit different, or is it always that you start out with the writing, from your head?
no, I think it's a little bit of both. Like like as far as the writing process, there is a bit of freestyling element to it because you gotta find the where your syllables hit. So it's like the best way to describe it is Jay-Z put out a documentary called Fade to Black.
I'm obsessed with this documentary.
Oh,
My
it's so
God.
good. It's so good. And he does this thing, and he's talked about it many times in many different interviews where he does this mumbling. You know, it's a mumble. You know, the beat starts, and then Jay-Z will start nodding his head,
Right.
and then he'll start this mumbling thing to himself. Most MCs have that where they start to mumble because they can hear
Right.
where the word should go.
Right.
You know, but then they got to figure out what to say, how to make it make sense.
Right.
What the but the mumbling it's kind of like freestyling. It's not words, but there is something happening in your brain where it's triggering. And sometimes words come, sometimes it's just the rhythm or the cadence or whatever. So I think it starts with that. The thing that's sorry to swear. I keep trying not to swear.
It's all right.
The thing that's hard is that MCs got to be all these things, you know?
Right.
They got to be the man's man. They got to be enough sensitive that women won't hit. You got to be understanding to the world's things. You got to be hard. You got to come from the inner city. You got to have the right car, the right chain. You got to have the right clothes. You got to, the right, like, it's a lot.
That's
and
a
one
lot.
One of those things is freestyling.
Mm-hmm.
I was a great freestyler when I started. Because I think that what happened was once I started writing songs, I completely zoomed in on being a great writer. Mm-hmm. And the freestyling, I was like, why freestyle? It's in the wind. The second I say it,
right,
it's in the wind. Like,
no one ever hears it again, and you won't remember it.
Yeah, why freestyle when I can write a song that'll live forever? So I do applaud those people who are great freestylers. I just never was one of those, but you have to have some element of that when you're writing a song, when you get into it.
Sure.
But yeah.
Wow.
That's what I say about that.
That's great. I love what you said about just the picture you painted about the box that the MC is in particular, a black MC. That's so
tough.
important.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do this. I also give it up to like all the New York dudes, biggest city, and you having to compete against all these people, and you have to have all the boxes checked.
Oof.
All the boxes. So it's like, I don't know. I've always liked those people who are a little askew.
Yep.
But even those people who are askew still had those boxes. Right. Andre 3000.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Man, if that dude didn't look cool, I don't know what cool is.
Absolutely.
He had the voice. He could rap. He could sing. He had all the things.
Right. He just checked extra boxes. It wasn't that he had any missing. He just had more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's intimidating for sure. But I like the idea. I like an artist like you, I feel like, is kind of taking a sledgehammer to the box in a way. And I feel like I'm looking forward to that happening more and more.
Word up. I appreciate you.
All right, well, let's listen to our first Moe Pope track. Oh, shit. You know what? I got to say one last thing about that Jay-Z documentary just because you brought it up before we move on to your song. I realized this opening segment isn't usually quite so long, but I had so many things I wanted to ask you, and I really enjoyed all your answers, so thank you.
Appreciate you.
But the Jay-Z Fade to Black documentary, I'm not sure if you were referring to this scene in particular, but this scene's changed my life. And it's the one where he goes down south. I forget the name of the studio. I think it may be Timberland who made this beat. And he's in a room, forget which producer this is. And so he's like, play some stuff for me. And producer, plays.
I think it's Timberland.
It's Tim, right? And so he plays this one beat, like an elephant sound, like right. And so Jay's like, all right, but how about that bounce? You got anything with that bounce? And so Tim hits the button. And a few songs go, he hits the button eventually, and it's
that's Timberland for sure. Yeah.
Right. That's his exactly. That's his beat. And so this is the beat to "Dirt Off Your Shoulders."
Yeah.
And what was so magical about this moment, this this documentary moment, because the whole documentary is incredible. There's all these amazing moments of him making this masterpiece of a record. At least that's how I feel about Black Album.
It's a classic.
It's a classic. Oh my God, I love so many rappers, and when I discovered that my favorite rapper was Jay-Z, I felt embarrassed at first, stupidly. It's stupid to feel embarrassed that Jay-Z's your favorite rapper, but I fell in love with Jay-Z. Kind of didn't realize it was happening until it happened, and I thought of myself as somebody who wasn't so much into kind of popular rap, and then I came to realize, no, man, I mean, this guy is saying important things that everybody hears, that kids who just have a radio hear what he says. And he, even though he talks a lot about, especially in the earlier days, about getting rich and about things that that weren't so important to me, he embedded in all of that really important stories from his life and stories from all of our lives. And I really grew to respect him and love him, on top of feeling like his flow was bananas. And so then that record, anyway, I'm digressing on my digression, but back to this moment where so in that documentary, you get to see him hear that beat for the first time. This is the first time he's ever heard the beat behind Dirt Off Your Shoulders. He hasn't written the song yet, and this look comes over his eyes. To me, the way it struck me was what it looks like when the lover sees their beloved for the first time. It's like he's just consumed, and then the beat's so loud in the footage you can't hear him, but you see he goes off in the corner. He can't even stand too close to Timberland. He goes off in the corner and he starts doing you called it mumbling, right?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
so he's just in it right away. He's like, and this, it's that. He's the depth of feeling that he has in that moment. I felt so touched by that. That just changed my life.
It's crazy. I forget who the MC was, and I'm gonna kick myself because I should probably keep it to myself if I don't know who the person who said it is. But there's a thing where it's like, going to God. You know what I'm saying? And
interesting.
And it's like the song is coming to you, and I've had this feeling, it's like, yes, I'm not I'm not the greatest rapper of all time, but I've had the feeling of this song came to me. I didn't create this. This came to me. And there's a lot of MCs that have heard that statement. When even before you record it, that this song is the thing that you should be recording at this moment. This is the one that you should be writing. And that's how I see that Jay-Z thing. He had a moment where he knew exactly what's supposed to happen. And I've got to believe that a lot of creatives have this. When you put the brush on the thing, even before you put the brush on the canvas, exactly what's supposed to happen there. You know that you're going to do something special in this moment. When you're writing your book, your novel, your movie, exactly what the moment is, and it came, and I've been there also where I've written and nothing's come to me.
Sure.
And I'm like, ugh. And I'm like, but it's still a good song. It's like, I've written songs where I was like, I don't know about this. I didn't have the moment. Like, I didn't have, but the words came out and like, but when you have, I know a lot of MCs and writers know what I'm talking about, where it just comes and the words just came. Like,
Absolutely.
without, So yeah, I see that moment and I'm like, I know exactly what's going on with that dude in that moment because I've had it, where I'm like, ooh, I know exactly what this is. Like, I've been
Right.
here before.
Right.
Like, so yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Sometimes
dope.
it comes through you as if, yeah, by divine. By divine,
Yeah.
right? Absolutely. Similarly, kind of the other side of it for me is I once read something by Chopin, Frederick Chopin, the pianist.
Yeah.
And he says something about like those songs where you can hear all of the careful like sometimes there's a very sort of impressive and well put together song, but you can hear all of the careful calculations behind the scenes that went into making it so perfect. And just the difference between those songs and the songs that where you don't hear all of the fine tuning like that. It's just you kind of hear the divine. And the funny thing is, I think sometimes those songs do just come through you, and you barely have to edit them. It's just like you just channeled something and you put that on the page. Sometimes you got to work your ass off for those songs, but you still manage to get them over that hump where you stop hearing the careful calculations. I think of a song like Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, which famously he wrote a billion verses for over 10 years, but ended up with this masterpiece.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
anyway,
that's a good one too. That's Leonard Cohen. That's a good one. Jay, I'm gonna say this. I knew that I knew that me and my first band were gonna break up because of Jay-Z.
whoa, why is that?
And I love these dudes. These are my family. We were going on tour, and I remember we had a van. We had a van. We were going on tour, and we're getting inside the van. The Blueprint album, the first one, just came out, and I'm excited to hear this. I'm excited because I've heard, girls has come out. Like, it's like, and I got made fun of. Jay-Z's jiggy. Jay-Z's this. I'm in the front seat, or whoever's in the front seat plays the music. And I went and bought the record for this ride, and I didn't put it in. I didn't put it in because I got made fun of. Right? And the whole time I'm thinking, I don't know. I think this dude is like one of the greatest though. Like what? Like I don't know. Like But everybody else in the car, nah, he's whack. He's this. He's this. And I'm like, that's fine. Whatever. We played the record. We finally played the record, and I love it. I love it. That Blueprint record was genius to me because it got all of the backpacker kids that was like, Jay-Z's just a gangster, whatever. It got all of us to be like, yo, this dude he got us now.
Yep.
He got us now.
That's
there's
right.
Nothing, and there still was a divide in the car. And I was like, damn, like I can see what I'm doing, this like hippie rap that I was doing. And I'm saying, I think I should gravitate more towards this.
Wow.
I don't know. I was like, I think there was a shift, and we were good. We were done shortly thereafter. I was like, just what I was listening to, what I wanted to become, and what I wanted to create wasn't happy raps anymore. Like I didn't want to, and the first record was that, and I love it. Don't get me wrong, I love it. It's everything that I am still,
Yep.
But that Mission record is my beginning, but I also wanted to say other things of how I grew up, what my family went through, and I couldn't do that in sunny California, and with this other music that was this other part of hip hop that was like bubbling, And I was like, oh, I think it's time to go back to the East Coast and figure it out. So
I'm so
yeah.
glad I took us on this digression because it meant I got to hear that story about how Jay-Z broke up your first band. That's incredible.
Well, I got kicked out, but
Yeah. Oh, right.
I got kicked out. But it was one of the moments that I was like, all right, I
Right.
think this is probably almost over.
Yep.
So so yeah.
All right. Well, let's listen to our first Moe Pope track. First song is the one I've chosen, and it is the song Good from Still Gold's 2017 album, Torch Song.
Razor blades in the lip, 9 million a whip. Money, power, respect. I've been told this as good as it gets. Gold is how we measure success. Pops left, mama wept, friends died. Our destruction is our genocide. This is for my people still alive. My block is big enterprise. Convicts must not apply to that job. They're surprised that I rob. Treat me like animal, I refuse to pray to their God. I come from a king and queen, but they treat me like I do not. Guns go pop, pop, pop. Pharmacy is in my pocket. They ain't leaving me many options. Call each other niggas often. One American pie. I'm just arguing the portions and the course of the sources of all these lies. If we teach our young, hatred vaporizing in their eyes will shine like kings of old. The crown will glow. Everything remains gold. Everything remains gold. We all good, long as the drugs keep coming. Long as the money keep coming. Long as the guns keep coming. Hey, we all good, long as the drugs keep coming. Long as the money keep coming. Long as the guns keep coming. Kilograms change hands on my corner. Ladies on my controller. My pockets is full of boulders. The soldiers were sipping sake, numb due to exposure. Gun holders, a chip heavy on my shoulder. These shackles, how they hold us. Back in wild hell's opponents. Our family members gone is locked up behind the bars, and others are in the box, putting me in mine in mourning. Our fathers don't even want them. Mama's more like a warden. The dollars are more important according to sources. We fail. We got kids in jail. We did not excel. She did not get bail. Waiters on the scale. Gotta make a sale. Gotta feed my babies. Teach them to prevail. Smoke my pain in hell. Then it's razor blades in the lip, 9 million a whip. Money, power, respect. I've been told this as good as it gets. Gold is how we measure success. Pops left, mama wept, friends died. We all good, long as the drugs keep coming. Long as the money keep coming. Long as the guns keep coming. Hey, we all good, long as the drugs keep coming. Long as the money keep coming. Long as the guns keep coming.
That was Good, featuring Still Gold and my guest, Moe Pope. First of all, I love this whole album, and I love the title, which is Torch Song. Such a clever double meaning, for those who aren't familiar with the notion of a torch song in songwriting. Usually, this is a sentimental song, typically about unrequited love. But the cover of this album has a house on fire. Given how outspoken about injustice you are on this record, the torch song becomes a call to, burn down the institutions of our oppression. Any comment on how you arrived at the album title?
I think we were constantly looking for something, and it took a while to get to Torch Song, but the archetype actually came up with the title. It's like kind of like we had both been sending stuff back and forth, and this was the first time that we were like, all right, this is definitely it. Especially the times I think that fight music and revolutionary music, torch songs, if you will, are something that is always happening in hip hop community, but I don't think they see it as that. I don't think they see it as like, you know, these political songs or whatever. I don't think they see it as like, yo, this is fight music. This is. And the times that we were in, especially during those times, we were looking for answers and ways to understand the, police shootings and, still to this day, to me, it was just a fitting title, for that very difficult time in American history.
Yep. Well, in this song that we've just listened to, Good, you're painting a picture of the way black life has been co-opted by centuries of racism, by classism, poverty, violence, prison industrial complex, and then glamorized by capitalism, which, further confines black Americans to that treadmill. How did you channel your lived experience, and your love for black people and your own pain in politics into this song?
I think that if you grew up in the inner city at any point, people, there's a gray area. I have a lot of hypocrisy inside of me, because there are people that I absolutely adore and love who have harmed people, who have harmed our community, who have, but they're my family. They're my people that I love. And, I think that like, that's a sentiment that if you've grown up in the inner city, you understand that it's all good.
Yep.
It's all good as long as the money keeps coming. You know what I mean? It's all good. We look away. As long as the drugs keep coming, it's fine. As long as the guns keep coming, it's fine. And I have plenty of family members who've been locked away and done things in the name of making it tomorrow because they didn't have any other way to support their families or what have you.
Yep.
It's not always a noble thing like supporting your family. Sometimes sometimes you want that nice car. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes and I think that's the tough part about the inner city is like when we feel sometimes you got to look the other way, and that's the unfortunate parts, two sides of coin. That you're destroying your community, but you're helping yourself, your family, your children,
right,
with what you have at your disposal. And who brought that there though?
Right.
How did we get those guns? And it's like we get blamed for the atrocities, but how did those atrocities get there?
Right.
So that's the question I want to push on people. It's not it's not just what's happening outside of our door. Those things had to get there somehow. Those
right.
weapons, the mentality, the money, had to come there somehow. Right. So that's pretty much what that is.
I love. It's really interesting what you're saying, and I hadn't thought about this song. I hadn't thought about all of those levels of complexity. So I'm really enjoying hearing you talk about it. I love the nuance between, on the one hand, the way, the oppressive society has created the conditions for this to happen inside of your community. And so you're speaking on that, yes, we are making decisions inside of this impossible situation, but we didn't create the impossible situation. That was, that a lot went into that
Absolutely.
That we had no control over. But I think the thing that I really wasn't tuned into that you're talking about now is, when you say, we all good long as the drugs keep coming, I heard that as just as sarcasm, as it's like, we're obviously we're not all good, but it's like this is the wrong attitude. That's the way I heard those lyrics, and that is part of it. But you're speaking on both, though, right? But you're speaking on this third part that I hadn't really thought about in this song, and it's interesting because it's something that's on my mind a lot. And that part is about where we willfully, I think you said turn away, where we accept or embrace things that or people that are wrong in some way. And I think, for those of us, again, back to, for those of us who were raised poor, for those of us who are people of color, for oppressed people, I think it's true for all people. None of us are perfect. All of us make mistakes. All of us, do things that we probably shouldn't have done. All of us hurt people, in different ways. This is just a part of life. Inevitably, you make mistakes, and they have consequences for other people. There are questions of degree, certainly, but when you're living a life where, again, back to the stakes for for the poor majority of the world, because of course the majority of the world is people of color, and the majority of the world is poor people. It's like the stakes are higher because you're living in a life or death situation, and so the choices you make are necessarily have sometimes more terrible consequences. So anyway, I guess I'm starting to ramble a little bit, but the thing I'm trying to say about it and what is touching me about what you're saying and about this song is I think we find ourselves, we in particular find ourselves in situations a lot where, what are you going to throw this person away because of the mistakes they made, even if those mistakes are terrible? It's like you got somebody in your life who matters to you, who's your family, who's your chosen family, whatever it is. If the option is to turn the other way and accept some of the dirt they've done versus to decide they don't have value in your life or you don't care about them anymore, you'll do that a lot of the time. And that
absolutely.
To me that's profound.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about like my grandfather. My grandfather walked here from Alabama when he was very young.
He walked here.
Walked with the pool stick and a razor blade, and he would play pool for money, and if he lost, he got the razor blade. So my grandfather was also a war hero. So we got to Boston. Didn't have a job, needed a job, went into the military. And he was also a type of person that in Dorchester, if there was any issues with white people and black people, they would call my grandfather to handle it. When to handle it meant to be violent. If they were going to be violent, my grandfather was going to handle it. And like they would call him first. And I think about this dude who was like the sweetest old man.
Wow. Yeah.
He was like so sweet to like his grandkids, and like I couldn't imagine him hurting a fly. But I've also heard the stories of who my grandfather really was.
Sure.
But do I throw away my grandfather because of I've heard many stories about what things that he's done. When I would get my hair cut at this place called Fogey's on Tremont Street when I was younger, and all the older people would be like, "Oh, yeah, I know your grandfather. Like, let me tell you, what he did."
Right.
And like there was, and I was like a kid, so like I think about a lot of stuff like that when I write. I think of like the both sides of the coin. How is it destroying us? How are these decisions in the inner city community helping us? How much was our decisions and how much weren't our decisions at all? What made us us? What parts are us and what parts were instilled, what parts were beaten into us? Like, it's all
right.
It's all a part of the gumbo that makes who we are. So I just think about a lot of that.
This song made me think of the book New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. Are you aware of this book?
Mm-hmm.
It's a book I think I read a couple of years ago. Really changed my life. Let's see, right in the first verse, you've got convicts must not apply to that job. They surprised that I rob. Treat me like animal. I refuse to pray to their God. Kind of her central thesis is that in the United States, we have a caste system that we don't talk about. That we think of ourselves as having a class system. We love to talk about the American dream and how you work hard enough, anybody can, become a millionaire, whatever it is, whatever big lie that is. And what Michelle Alexander shows is that, caste, the way caste is different than class, is that in caste there's no mobility. You can't go up or down. That you're stuck in the economic situation, in the social situation, and in the life situation where you're born. And she shows the way that the prison system and the prison industrial complex maintains that reality. And she's talking specifically about black people, and actually in that book she's talking specifically about black men. In the foreword, it's interesting, she explains why she decides to focus on black men. But anyway, yeah.
It's crazy when you think about it, because it's like, all right, well, how did these American forefathers, billionaires, rich people,
right,
get their money, right?
Right.
But then they scoff at Jay-Z,
right,
for essentially doing the same thing. Like, all right, he's just a drug dealer, right? He's just a drug dealer. Well, what were you? What like, how did your grandfather become a millionaire?
That's right.
And it's like, it's funny, like, when you think about how it all works. Do I like Jay-Z because he was a drug dealer? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Right.
But I could tell you right now, my uncle was too.
Right.
Do I dislike my uncle? Nah. No, absolutely not. So I think that, like, it's one of these things of, like, when you think about what it is that we have to deal with, and a lot that we have to dissect, and in order to get out of our situation, that we were put inside of, like you said, like, we were talking about earlier. It's like, did I want to grow up in the projects? Absolutely not. Would I have loved to have had a house? Absolutely. But the projects gave me perspective, gave me community, gave me that we thing that we were talking about. Like,
yep.
You know what I mean? And so I wouldn't change it for the world,
I love how you end this song the same way you start the song, with the verse that starts razor blades in the lip. Two things about this. First, your song's about a vicious cycle, in part, and we songwriters often use a trick of ending a song by repeating the first verse. This is especially useful if you killed it on the first verse and you want to make sure people get to hear that killer first verse one more time. But the way you recycle the first verse here also helps reinforce this sense of oppression being a vicious cycle. Didn't notice that till I looked at it on the written page after I've heard the song a lot of times, but I appreciated that with fresh eyes here.
Yeah, it's I think that that's the listening to different type of music, and I think that that's important for, especially how, like, hip hop, you're forced to love other music. You are forced. You can't say you don't like folk music and then you're bumping a hip hop song that uses that folk sample in it. Like, it's like it's. I think that it's ingrained in us to love all types of different music, but the writing styles, how the writing, adding a bridge, adding, like, certain things. It's like, as an MC, you give me a beat and I'll rap on that beat and give you a hook, like, and I'm happy with that. But as I get older and I realize like, there's structures, there's ways of changing structure. There's a way of creating your own way.
Yeah.
You know, I love that too. I love listening and being inspired by music and trying to add those new things that I learned into my own music.
Totally. You saying, give me a beat, I'll rap on this beat, reminds me 15 years ago or so, I saw KRS-One in Alston. And he was like, all right, I forget what, like Vivaldi. He was like, drop the Vivaldi. No beat at all. It was just Vivaldi. And he's just freestyling over this, just classical music, straight classical music.
I've seen him do that with country music.
Oh, no way, with country music?
Yeah, I've seen him do that with country music. He was like, yo, he's like, they drop me something that they don't expect, and they do put on country, and he rapped over it. Yeah,
I love that. I love that so much. Okay, so this is a digression. It's actually a question I meant to hit on earlier, but since you brought up folk music and country music, it's back to genre. We started out talking about genre, and I meant to hit you with this because of something you had said in another interview that I thought was really interesting and super important, so I didn't want to miss it. You said something about how the genre of folk music has become singer-songwriter music, and that kind of everything else has become Americana. And you took issue with the idea of Americana as it's currently understood, which I would describe as, music that blends together any combination of folk, rock, roots, country, or blues. And, and this is my genre. And in the interview, you said, isn't rap American music? I mean, what's more American than rap, and why isn't that also Americana? And I would take your statement a step further and say, isn't hip-hop also folk music? So Wikipedia defines folk music as music transmitted orally, music with unknown composers, music that's played on traditional instruments, music about cultural or national identity, music that changes between generations. This is called the folk process. Music associated with a people's folklore, or music performed by custom over a long period of time. To me, this is another way of saying that folk music is the people's music, in the same way that revolution usually comes from a people's movement. And all this to say, I'm a quote-unquote Americana artist, and all this bothers me. And I'd love to hear any further thoughts you have on it.
I don't know. I think labels are tough, man, because like I listen to some hip-hop, and I'm like, damn, this is like R&B, this is rhythm and blues. And then I listen to some hip-hop, and I'm like, this is definitely folk music. And I listen to some music. I mean, it's just the Americana, the word, is just, I don't get it. I've also said that I'm world music too. So don't get, I think it's just I'm just being an asshole, I guess.
I don't think so, though. I don't think you're being an asshole. I think it's a problem. The reason, so why would I call myself an Americana artist? For me, in the situation I'm in, and this is being, an Iranian American making a combination of folk, country, blues, and rock, where nobody like me is doing what I'm doing. It's like I'm in an extreme. People of color are in a minority in my genre, and I'm in a minority of that minority. So, it's like trying to find my place. And for me, it's like folk music, you were saying how it sort of becomes singer-songwriter music. For the last 20 or 30 years, that's been an uncomfortable place for me. It's felt, back to our talking about class, it's felt like a pretty middle-class environment and milieu, and it's like the things that, right? And the things that I'm trying to talk about, it's like I'm trying to talk about the things that, people like Bill Withers were talking about, that people like, Bruce Springsteen, especially in his early work, were talking about, that people like Woody Guthrie was talking about, playing union halls and prisons. I'm trying to talk about, where I come from, and talking about being a union organizer. And so it feels to me like it doesn't fit in the world of folk music, which to me has become something else. And then also, I'm welcoming in rock and roll, and I'm welcoming in country music. And so Americana is that umbrella category, but then Americana really does seem like it's trying to say this is the Americanist of the musics or something. And it's ridiculous. So the whole thing's uncomfortable. I don't like it. I'm looking for something else, and I was glad you said something about it.
So I don't know. So it's funny, man, because I definitely I've had a homegirl that's like a singer songwriter,
Yep.
you know, and she rejects that shit too. She's definitely said I'm world music.
Uh-huh.
I'm world music, you know,
like
and
that.
I started thinking so I've done a couple of interviews where people be like hip hop artists, and I'm like world music, like so I don't know. I think it's funny.
All right. Well, thanks for allowing me the digression. I was glad to hear your thoughts on it. All right. So back to razor blades in the lip, because I have a second thing I want to pick apart about that line, which is, to me, that line speaks to one of the marvels of hip hop, which is the way rap lyrics can be so dense and tell a whole story in a few words. So, for people that maybe aren't aware, razor blades in the lip is rooted in the prison experience, where you might hide a razor blade, probably removed from a shaving razor, in your lip as a concealed weapon. So those 5 words tell a whole incredible, and to be real, a horrifying story about what it's like to be incarcerated and the anxiety of a life that is kill or be killed.
Absolutely.
That you might need to hide a razor blade in your mouth, where it will inevitably also cut you, in order to defend yourself or to attack another person. But in this song, the line is over in a flash, and we're on to the next statement, which is also packed with meaning. So I guess here's my question about songwriting, in addition to my observation of how I think that's incredible, and I love that part of the song. Do you think about lyricism in terms of dense and less dense lyrics? Is that a part of your process?
I I try to think of things like that I would be excited about as an MC. There's 2 meanings there. Razor blade in the lip. As an MC, as a rapper,
Right.
that's how MCs fight.
Right.
Razor blades in the lips.
I missed that entirely. Of course, though.
You know, so like I try to like look at things in like 2 ways sometimes of how somebody could take something and be like, oh, I see what he did there, you know, or whatever. I think there are some great rappers that do this very well, and that Black Thought is one of my favorite MCs of all time, and I think that he does this very well, where he takes something that you're perceived to think he's talking about one thing, when he's really also talking about something else as well. And I try to make things as not easy for people, so that they hear it 5 years from now and they say, "Oh, I didn't even catch that," like, you know, or whatever. I try to, but I also, you know, I don't want to paint myself as being some genius, because I'm not. I just love hip hop music, and I think that my favorites do stuff like that. So I think I'm trying to mimic as much as possible some of my favorite MCs and how would they attack something like this, you know?
Yep.
So
before we move on, any last comments on Good? Anything you want to say about the writing of it?
I would say that like I navigate to great, you know, like especially that particular beat archetype makes things that make me feel, you know, and you know, I'm very lucky. I have this band that pushes me to try different things, and they want me to try different things, but they're also like, damn, you're a dope MC, and they trust my creativity. They trust my opinion. If I feel like something is the right way to go, they trust it, and I'm trusting of them. That beat came, and everything that I'm rapping on that is because Arc created it. Archetype created it and was like, I know you're gonna do the right thing for this. You know? So I think that like like even with the Black Dots and the Jay-Z, is Jay-Z without Just Blaze and Timbaland and Rick Rubin, and is he Jay-Z really? Unless he had the landscape to be himself on, what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? Like, so, like I said, I just wanted to say that like I'm pretty lucky that like all the people like Rain, Head Nod, Arc, I've had these giant Lightfoot, I've had these giants of talent
Right.
at my disposal in which to create. And I wish more people had that. Sometimes you got to take what you got and do what you can. I was gifted these incredible beings. It's like I don't know how I got so lucky, but I did. So
I hear you. Not everybody has the incredible crew that you have, but I think wherever you are in your journey as an artist, there's something available to you. Like you don't make great art in a vacuum. You're having a conversation with somebody, and we all have access to at least some kind of audience, even if that audience is the one person at a show where one person showed up, or maybe nobody shows up, and you're playing for the bartender. That's still information. You're still having a conversation. That. Yeah, oh yeah, we've all done that. You played enough shows, you've done that.
So, yeah.
But whether it's that or whether it's a fellow, to me it's like I have a songwriting editor who was also on this show in an earlier interview. He's the guy that I run everything by, and that it's like when I'm writing something, I have him in my mind. What's he gonna say about this? Will this turn of phrase make him laugh? And that's so. It's like whoever you are, you have to find those people in your life. Be it a band of inspiring people that you're doing it live with, but you can get it from anywhere. Just find those people that you got the connection with and can make such a difference.
Absolutely.
So next we'll play the song that you chose. This is Sleeping Beauty from an EP called, I think it's pronounced Chills, CHLS. Is that true?
Chills, yeah, CHLS, Childhood Love Stories.
Ah, that's right, Childhood Love Stories. Oh, that's so great. It's back to density and packing in meaning in hip-hop. So fantastic. So featuring Lightfoot, Childhood Love Stories, Scott David, Latrell James, Tim Nehan, is that how you say his name?
Tim Nyan,
Rael, Chris Claxton, and my guest Moe Pope. Just a note for you listeners, this track clocks in at an impressive 9 minutes and 46 seconds, but I promise it'll be worth it. There are several MCs rapping on this one. You'll hear
Sorry
Moe.
about that.
No, it's a great song. I'm glad you chose it. You'll hear Moe last, beginning with the line, "This is something you should feel." Moe Pope, the imposter.
Oh no, first and last.
Oh, were you the first? You know what? I wondered if that was you first.
Yep.
And then I convinced myself out of it. Oh my gosh! So that's you first and you last. All right, corrected live on air. So you got Moe first, and then he comes in at the end with "This is something you should feel." Moe Pope, the imposter.
Yeah, anytime, any place, any day, any minute when I'm walking to the beat. I was living for the moment, cause you never ever know when your soul gonna leave, and your body not left in the dirt, decompose. Now you've been feeding the earth with the curse of devils lurking. What goes around comes around, watch out for the asteroids. When it go boom, I'ma rejoice with a couple dead soldiers making noise. Spoils and victimizers, harlots on tranquilizers. Deciphering right from wrong is what me and mine do in ciphers. They supply the lies, which justifies the means to shoot back at these lies. Identify with survivors, and I'm thinking it's my time to give you the feeling you came for. The trigger squeezed, the hammer popped out, the bullet through the top of your can go, and your brain remains on the floor. Somebody should pick it up. I'm feeling myself, my lyrics are screaming for bitches to look it up. Get up, 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 get up. If I fucking die tonight, I promise I'ma come back as a villain and lay you all to sleep. If I fucking die tonight, and lay you all to sleep. And if I was to die tonight, I hope the gun spark that took me out would be my guiding light. And if I was to go, would you shed a tear for me? Or would you check in on everyone that cares for me? Man, I was thinking about life, I was thinking about love, I was thinking about death, I was thinking about my grandfather and what's on his mind when he took his last breath. Man, I know I sound selfish, but I grew up so sheltered. My homie grew up in a shelter, I felt so helpless. Couldn't help him with nothing, so I felt like nothing. Man, where do you go when you lose it all? Family, friends don't pick up your call. When life throws a punch, you will do them all. Just watch for the hook that'll do your ball. I've been trying to find a way to put my mom and father in a better home. I found out the greatest company comes to me when I'm all alone. I found out the best stress relievers to disconnect your phone. 2 rights can make a wrong. 3 rights a circle around the block, and then back to the corner. Pouring out Captain Morgan in the back of the coroner. Cold heart of a northerner. Stay away, man, I'm warning you. If I fucking die tonight, I promise I'ma come back as a villain and lay you all to sleep. Fall down, go to sleep. Hands up, black out, bullets fly, fall down, go to sleep. Hands up, black out, bullets fly, fall down, go to sleep. Hands up, black out, bullets fly, fall down, go to sleep. But I have died, reborn, feeling like I'm baptized. Might have recognized me from a past life. Only thing ain't changed was my face. Everything else done been replaced. My soul, my mind, and my grace. My dreams keep calling my name. Nightmares, they keep me awake, but they couldn't kill me through 1,000 deaths. Bounce back, crawl, found my steps and break me an ounce of sweat. Try to take that win, don't count it yet, cause I'm back. Kick the top off the coffin, came up coughing, caution, here I come. Motherfuckers better run. I levitate over 808s. Used to chase the feeling, but now it ain't the same. I paint the picture, I depict the pain. You pointing fingers to be stripped of blame. I'm a martyr, modern day philosopher. I got problems, like all of us, but I'll solve them. Falling slowly, please don't catch me, I'm alright. I grew wings, I don't fall, I take flight. Kill me once, kill me twice, and it's an issue, it's official. Kill me 3 times and I'll come back just to get you. the apostle. Don't wanna love it, but you got to. I'm on stage getting hostile. I'm writing you a pretty haiku. I know some niggas just like you. Some motherfuckers thinking they were better sleeping on me way back in high school. But I knew, I grew, learned how to hold a rifle. I don't believe in a God, though the Lord just might strike you. Now the world wanna catch your feelings, and I'm thinking that it's quite delightful. Ride a beat like motorcycle. I'm high enough, I'm on the moon. Thinking, can I walk like Michael? Gotta hear to say you are. The answer ain't inside the Bible. My best friend stay trifling, so now I'm quite subdued. My mama threw me to the wolves, pondering who invented the rules. This is something you should feel. I've been swimming through the bulls. Hey, suits in the clouds, pin me down, trying to take in the view. I'm tired of paying my dues. I've been confused. Nowadays, all I wanna do is stay true. And the whole world stay asleep. I'm saying I am not immune. I'm not knowing how to lose. Can't walk a mile in my shoes. I got nothing here to prove. I will survive as I choose. I will survive as I choose. I will survive as I choose. I will survive as I choose.
Once again, that was Sleeping Beauty, featuring Lightfoot, Childhood Love Stories, Scott David, Latrell James, Tim Nean, Rael, Chris Claxton, and my guest, Moe Pope. Mo, why did you choose this song for us to talk about today?
Honestly, this is like one of the only times that I've created something and it really did get no love. It got no love at all. It's like, and I love it. I don't know why I love it so much. It's what, 5, 6 songs. It's one song. It's like, in the vein of like Love Supreme, where it's like all broken up into sections, but it's one long song.
Yeah.
The whole record is, and all the songs go into each other, and
yep.
And I love it. I worked really hard on it. Lightfoot worked really hard on it, and when I listen to it, it still sounds like it could have come out yesterday.
Yeah.
And that blows my mind that it like, I do feel like it's one of the times that people got it wrong. So, it's, we took these kids stories and made adult tales out of them, like every song is, poisons, like you bite the apple, like Snow White, the Sleeping Beauty. What was the other ones? I don't even know. Let me look at the other names. Hold on. Black Dragon, Kings and Queens, Wolf, is the big bad wolf, So like, it's just like we created this thing that I'm just super proud of. I hear this song and it took us so long to make this song. It's like 10-minute long song that changes and moves and has it's like it has its own personality, I feel like, and everyone added their parts so perfectly. Yeah, I'm just really proud of this song. I'm proud of it.
I'm so glad you brought it to our attention. For me as a listener, the thesis of your second part is the bars of the final line. I will survive as I choose. Which is a profound statement. It's the decision a person makes that, I'm the master of my destiny. The poet Mary Oliver said, "What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" Mm-hmm. And I think that's what you're talking about here. Is that, am I close to what you were feeling?
Absolutely, man. I feel like, this particular song, it's two ways. Like, we're thinking about our mortality, and we're also thinking about our mortality within the music scape of people sleeping on us. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you could take it two different ways, and to end off on, I like nobody's gonna sleep on me. I will survive as I choose. Like I will make sure that, like, in my opinion, people will hear me, and yeah, I watch, I love film, and like there's certain, like, they always ask the actors, what is your most important role that you ever played or whatever, and it's always some obscure thing that no one liked, that these actors pick, and they're like, I love this movie that no one watched. This is the one that I really felt like I nailed it, like, and no one watched it, and like I feel like this is that record. That's why I chose it, because I was like, he's probably gonna pick something still gold, and I was like, so I'm gonna pick something that I feel I am. Like I said, we worked so hard on this thing. And like during that time, man, my aunt, I just remember the time so vividly. My aunt passed away. My cousin was getting out of prison around that time. Like we were like going through the process of going to the parole board and making sure that they knew that he had a foundation. He had people that were gonna love on him and keep him out. He was in for 21 years, and then I was in a battle with my landlord because he wouldn't fix our doorknob wouldn't latch, and I had a baby. I had a 3-year-old at the time, and or a 2-year-old at the time, and he wouldn't. The front door wouldn't latch, and he wouldn't fix the thing, so he kicked us out. I went on tour, and he kicked us out, and I was dealing with fighting him on kicking us out with this like baby, like, God. So it was like all these things was happening while we were making this like little piece of love, and it just meant a lot to me, and no one listened to it. And like, yeah, it's just one of those heartbreakers. But I listened to it, and I put it on vinyl recently because I was like, yo, like, it's one of the only things I don't have on vinyl. I need it on vinyl in order to make myself feel right, And it sounds even better on vinyl to me. I
bet it does.
I'll send you one. I'll send you one.
Wow. Oh, I would be over the moon. And if people want to buy that on vinyl, where do they go?
You can go to Vinyl Index. Vinyl Index is selling them exclusively, and they're a wonderful record shop in, what is that, Somerville or Bow Market, in Massachusetts. So yeah,
Wonderful.
check that out.
I'm so touched by all of this, and so glad you brought this record and this song to our attention. I want to digress again, just because you've mentioned movies and the way that that's influenced you. Started off at the top explaining to people where Still Gold came from outsiders. I was just looking through your catalog, noticing Let the Right Ones In is a reference some people will catch to a Swedish movie that was remade into a terrible American remake. Don't watch it. But
A terrible,
unwatchable
American movie, but the Swedish version, literally one of the greatest movies of all time.
A masterpiece. Has some truly terrifying moments. I'm not a horror guy, so a few of those parts really scare me. But
I'm not either. But you know it's weird, because I tell my my oldest all the time when we're talking about film, because we love movies, and it's like, I love good movies. Doesn't matter what genre. If it's a good movie, I'll watch a comedy. I'll watch a romantic comedy. I'll watch a horror movie if it's a great film.
Yes.
But I don't like horror. I'm not a big horror guy, but this just happens to be an amazing film. Like,
it's not a horror movie, really. It's just
a love story.
It's a love story between two children, one of whom is a vampire.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
All right, had to make the connections there, but also just I'm enjoying what an impact music has had on your work. Once again, my work very different, but I have studied screenwriting is a thing that really mattered to me. I dove deep, and it really affected my songwriting.
That's great.
Becoming, I've never made a cent off of my screenwriting, but I've put in hundreds of hours, but it paid other dividends in my songwriting. And so anyway, just lovely to make that connection, in terms
That's
of.
amazing. You're a great writer, makes sense.
Thank you. So, I gotta say, back to Sleeping Beauty, gotta say the flow here is bananas. All the artists, but I'm just gonna talk about you here. Your writing style, your rhyme style, your delivery always hit hard. Whether it's gentle and understated or you're coming out hot. To me, this one has a special precision to it. Kind of the definition of cool to me, and it's interesting that you compared this record to what was it, Coltrane?
Love Supreme.
Compared to Love Supreme, exactly, which makes a lot of sense. So I guess my question is, how much control do you have over the writing and the beat and the rapping coming together to create that synergy that happened here? And how much of it is you throwing stuff at the wall, trying to see what sticks?
This particular thing, this is the funny part about MCing, is that most MCs are producers too, and they don't get the credit. Like, if I, as a producer, Quincy Jones walks into a room and he says, we need horns on this. I need the bass to have this filter on it, this pedal or whatever, and he gets production credit. Right. Doesn't matter if he wrote the music or not. Right. He gets production credit. MCs do that all the time. They do it all the time, but they don't get the actual production credit. This particular song was my idea. I wanted the song to switch in between. It started out as the first beat, which is amazing. The very first beat already in and of itself was a banger. I wanted it to switch, and it kind of pissed off some of the other rappers on the song, because they were like, damn, I wanted to rap on the other part. But to me, the switching is part of the love of this song. Like, it has so many times that the beat has changed, the mood has changed, but yet it still has the same vibration throughout the song, and John Ullman played drums on it, Chris Claxton played keys and trumpet on it, Rael singing on it. It's like all of those things. Like, I could have kept the chorus the same.
Yep.
I chose not to. I chose to I wanted it to change up. Lightfoot could have said no, or he could have gave me like very minimal change ups. He absolutely crushed the thing. I can have an idea, but ultimately he had to nail it, and he did. He did, and so this is it's one of my favorites that Lightfoot's done even, and I think that he's always creating new things and new ways of outdoing himself, and this is one of my favorite things that I've ever did. Period in music, just because I knew how hard it was, Scott and was a Scott Forrester and Lightfoot both crushed this one, in my opinion.
I'm so glad you chose this song in the way that it represents you, to such a degree. Your all the different parts of what you do. What a wonderful choice.
Yeah, you know what? Also, too, is like not for nothing, Latrell and Tim crushed this so hard. Tim Knight and Latrell, like, I was like, damn, these young dudes is like, I was like, they kind of, I was like that. So that's what, not for nothing, that last verse, I was like, I need to fucking, I can't get eaten on my own song. I was like, I have to put a period on this thing or whatever, because I felt like they crushed it so hard and made something that was just so beautiful to me that I still find beautiful. I still find it to be, after all these years, one of my favorites, and it still sounds new to me. So
that's interesting about them pushing you. I was just talking on a previous episode to somebody about how I heard a comic say that she, when you write a comedy hour, you're supposed to end with your strongest material, and she was saying that what she does is she does that, and then she takes the strongest part from the end and puts it at the beginning, and then forces herself to rewrite it so that the end is still the strongest part, just to ratchet the quality up. And I was talking about that, in terms of songwriting, when you're the only writer on the track, and having those kind of standards for your own work, kind of like using your best work as motivation to challenge the stuff that maybe was filler. And this is interesting because you're talking about using a whole nother artist's work on the same track to push you, in that same way. Yeah,
MCs do that all the time, man. Like,
right.
No one wants to get eaten on their own album, and it's not a competition. It really isn't a competition all the time. Hip hop is a competition in some ways. It is a battle in some ways, but that's not what they were trying to do. They just wrote great verses. They wrote these amazing verses, and I felt like what they did in one verse, I had to do in two. I just felt like they crushed it so much that I didn't do enough. I didn't do enough because they did what I couldn't do in one verse. So yeah. I just I hats off to both those. Plus, and then Latrell sang, I was like, oh, okay, I can't sing, I don't know, it was great. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna end with just a few brief last segments. This one I'm calling Liberation Toolkit. Particularly in the last 3 albums, as we mentioned, you've written a lot about racism, about oppression of poor and working people, about police violence in your neighborhoods. Another thing you and I have in common in my mind is being, I don't know what you call it, radical or revolutionary or, protest songwriters to some degree. And I'd like to pick your brain about how you blend your job as an artist. And we've touched about this throughout this conversation, how you blend your job as an artist with the role of the activist. When you write and perform these kinds of songs, are you thinking about, reaching for people's minds and starting a conversation? Or are you just speaking your truth, as is your right as a human being? Where do you come from?
Mm-hmm. I think that it's like, I'm just speaking my truth, whatever that truth is in any aspect. I've sang these songs in all black spaces. I've sang these songs in all white spaces, and it's hard sometimes, you know.
Sure.
And it's crazy because my band being, you know, biracial, my band's a good mix of different ethnicities and cultures. They're always like, yo, we got you. No matter who's in the room, I feel like you should say it exactly how you feel it. No matter what's coming out your mouth, we got you. You know, and like I said, I've been in spaces where it's like, you know, it's a festival of rich white kids, and I say it.
Yep.
And it's difficult, you know, but I say it, and I think that I think that there's certain rappers that don't have to deal with that, but I think that it's all hard. It's all. I mean, if I was up there talking about, you know, what's going on in my community or things that I've done in my community, that's just as hard in all white spaces as well. You know? So the difference is I got other people behind me helping me if things go left. You know, I have a whole band to kind of hide behind. You know, and you know, so yeah, I'm always coming with my full truth every time. I try to, no matter what situation I'm in. That's like, you know, I've been in black spaces where I'm talking about the punk music that I grew up listening to. I was listening to punk when I was in academies too. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You know, and that, you know, that's hard. That's hard to do too.
Sure.
You know, and you know, so I try to lean on being that at all times. You know what my truth is. I'm not going to diminish myself for nobody. You know.
Do you believe we have an obligation as artists to speak on issues of human liberation and oppression, or do you think each artist gets to make that choice?
I think that each artist gets to make that choice. I don't think it's fair that I think that a lot of times I look at like I mean, case in point, I love Mac Miller, right? Mac Miller is a white rapper, lives in white spaces and raps and talks about what he grew up with, what he loves. And like, I love Mac Miller. I think he's a special talent that we lost all too soon. But you know, I don't think it's fair to make black people have to always, black and brown people always have to tell the hard truths if a Mac Miller doesn't have to.
Sure.
You know, if he gets to just go out and create and live his journey and be great doing what he's doing, we should be able to do the same, you know. And if you feel compelled to speak on the atrocities and the hardships and all that, that's your right to, but we shouldn't be forced to. I feel like in every aspect of black and brown people, we're asked to do this thing, whether it's the writing, like a book, a film, or whatever. It's like, oh, well, how are you gonna put the fact that Captain America is black now and he's dealt with racism into this story? Yeah, but why can't he just be Captain America and we just like move on? Like, you know, why can't he just save the world like the other Captain America did? Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, so, you know, that's how I feel about it. It's like, I feel like we shouldn't have to. And sometimes when I listen to music, I don't want to have to think about what my grandparents had to deal with and what I have to deal with on a everyday basis. You know, and sometimes I just want to enjoy. You know, joy is meant for us too. You know, so
sometimes I feel like I'm totally here and agree with everything you're saying. Sometimes I feel like we as people of color, people of the global majority, are the ones who shoulder that burden, though, of saying those things when we do say them. I agree with you that we shouldn't have to. And I feel like, white folks in particular, that there is a lot less coming from them on that front. And I wish I heard more. And sometimes, like I really love the country singer Lyle Lovett. I love his music, even though I got a lot of problems with his music as well. And I heard him give an interview once and talk about how he felt like that there was that songwriters shouldn't, and he felt like he shouldn't comment on politics and things political. And I felt like what you're saying is political. You just won't acknowledge it. And some of what you're saying is bad politics. And I feel like so it's interesting because while I completely agree with what you're saying, on the other hand, sometimes I feel like I wish there was an onus on artists more evenly, and in particular white artists, to take up some of that space and to speak on things that maybe they don't have to speak on, like their lives don't depend on it and the lives of their communities don't depend on it, but that in order for this world to be what it should be, a better world, that maybe sometimes I feel like maybe they do need to. You agree or disagree?
I do. I feel like it's not skewed the right way. Like a director has to, like John Singleton can't just make a movie, right? Like John Singleton would have to put commentary on black cops and what black people are actually dealing with in his movie. He can't just make a movie. It's part of, he has to do the thing, right?
Right. Yep. Totally.
Whereas Steven Spielberg doesn't have to do the thing.
Right.
Has he done it? Yes, he has.
Yes, he has. Right.
Yes, he has. But he doesn't have to. I mean, George Lucas has made many movies. He doesn't have to. Sure. So that's my whole thing is like, I do think that there's a lot of pressure for us to have to say things in these rock stars and these white people don't have to. And yes, I wish it was more skewed to that they would speak on these things, but man, well, how about we just, if we don't want to, we don't have to. How about that? If I want to make a movie about the black experience in America and not put anything about race, I should be able to. I should just be able to talk about what goes on my everyday, and just like these guys do, so yeah, it's tough. It's a tough sword, but I definitely do like when people speak on a little bit less linear, like a little bit more well-rounded about there are other people in this world besides yourself.
Absolutely. All right. To finish our show, we'll each share one cool thing, something that's piqued your interest. How do you say that word? Or even something you've been mildly obsessed with that you think our listeners might enjoy. You want to go first or second, Mo?
I'll go first. I wanted to come with like some profound record or a book that I've been watching or reading or something, but I went with the show that I just thought was amazing. I loved it. The show is called The Bear. I don't know if anyone.
I watched part of the first season and I'm loving it.
You just watch part? You got watch the whole thing.
I got to finish it. I came up in restaurants. That was my early work, was restaurants.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
It's literally, honestly, it's the best payoff of any show I think I've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
And I've seen a lot of shows. I love film and TV, but this was the best payoff of the ending show that I've ever seen ever. And it's amazing. Yeah, definitely check this out. All the episodes are good, but it's like when you get to the end after watching all of that, very, very well written, very good acting. Yeah, check that shit out. The Bear.
I love it. What a great recommendation. Mine is also a TV show.
Oh,
yes, sir. So I'm rewatching it currently with my 10-year-old. It's called Kipo and the Age of the Wonder Beasts.
Oh, I watched that.
Did you watch that?
My little one, yeah.
You watched it too?
Yeah, it's very good.
With yours, who's the same age as mine. So the most incredible animated series on Netflix, featuring an all-black leading cast of kids. Songs by GZA, Dope Saint Jude, other great artists. It's funny, engrossing, post-apocalyptic saga for kids and adults age, I think, 7 and up or so. My wife and I are also obsessed with this show. So anyway, glad you watched it. It's dope. Like vibrant and creative.
Note,
yeah.
I missed the Avatar because my oldest, this was her generation. The Avatar,
totally.
The Last Airbender.
Totally.
I missed it, and then I watched it front to back with my little one. And that also gave me that like, not the same as Kipo and the Wonder Beast, but it not the same, but it was the first time that I was like, all right, these animated shows have a lot of heart and drama and good writing as like adult shows, you know. It's like
totally.
It was very, very, very entertaining, but yet it left you with like a positive message, and it was you know, people of color, which I like, you know. Yeah, very dope.
Yeah, Avatar: The Last Airbender is the perfect comparison. I'm 100% with you.
Dope.
Well, Moe Pope, so great having you on the show.
Dope, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
You can find everything Moe Pope and Still Gold at stillgold.com. That's STLGLD.com. I'll link to the website and their socials in the show notes. And if you're interested in Moe's paintings, we didn't talk about them much, but Moe's an incredible painter. You can see those on Instagram. I'll link to that, to his IG address in the show notes as well. And if you want to contact him about any of his paintings and his work, you can reach him at moepope@gmail.com, MOEPOPE. I am Muhammad7. You can find me at Muhammad7.com. That's MUHAMMAD and 7 SEVEN, like the number. There you can find my music and tour dates, as well as how to get in touch if you're interested in songwriting coaching or lessons, which I offer. If you'd like your ad to be featured at the top of the podcast, just email it in. You can find my contact info in the link tree on all of the We Flew Off the Page social media pages. We're always eager for new sponsors. Today's sponsor, The Larynx, also known as the Larynx, was brought to you by David Shearer Water of the Olympia Radio Company. You can find him at olympiaradiocompany.com and on your favorite podcatcher. And I'll leave you with a quote today from Johnny Blazes, who once told me that the song is a gift that you're giving the audience, and it's a gift that you're giving yourself. I'll see you back here next time on We Flew Off the Page.